All right, we'll call to order today's meeting of the Sidewalk Ad Hoc Committee. For public comment, I was just going to mention we've had a couple of meetings that have focused a bit on the Meadow Road project. That's been an interesting test case for some of the things that we've discussed, but just for a reminder for anybody listening or here, the charge of the committee, the original charge, is to it's a few things, which I'll read off quickly. Review the existing sidewalk ordinance and study the sidewalk ordinances in other towns. Determine the percentage of the town that currently has sidewalks. Educate the community on the current ordinance and process. Hold public meetings. Create questions. Hire a consultant. And hire a consultant. Run a survey. Sorry, this writing's a little bit small for me. Deliver and include preliminary cost estimates for various options for the town of Farmington and a town-funded sidewalk program. Work with town planning and zoning and town departments as needed. Report back to full town council on the results of the survey and input. So we have checked a few of those boxes, and then tonight's meeting will be to check a few more of those. Before we get going, we can do public comment. So if there's anybody in the chamber that would like to make public comment, please come up, state your name and address, and if you can keep your comments to 5 minutes, that would be great.
Paul Krell, that person who owns 450 feet of property on Meadow Road. I have to apologize. I don't have hearing aids. And so what you said earlier, I think, was the purpose of the committee.
Yes. Yeah. Essentially, the purpose of the committee was to explore options for ordinances and
I understand. The reason I'm here, and I've been here, when I learned about sidewalk coming on my property, when I got back from vacation in May, I was told that this committee was an outgrowth of a lot of questions that were coming up on the sidewalk project on Meadow Road. While it would also be covering other parts in terms of citywide, that was a major part and was kind of referred here. And ironically, I spoke with somebody last night who said, "Oh, that's really not what the case is." So, well, okay. That's not what I've been told. Anyway, I also noticed, I went online, I noticed that my daughter is listed in the correspondence. Well, I have not read it. I started reading some of it. She has an opinion on what's going on, and she's familiar with what I've talked about to her. I also will point out that underneath your agenda, it's 1L, not 2 L's for Allison. She's working tonight, and she's trying to make enough hours so she'll get Chili's insurance package. She's got like 2 weeks to get the hours she needs. So she couldn't come when I told her that she was on here. All right. So the last time I was here, there was a lot of discussion about a questionnaire being put together and sent out to people. I contacted the town manager's office last Friday and asked if it had gone out, and they said no. I said, okay. I'm hoping it's still going to happen. I thought it was a good idea. I know my brother told me that he had put some suggestions as to other things that should be put on for questions. I guess he was online at the last meeting. I was not able to be. Anyway, so I've had a chance to talk to some folks. I didn't talk to many yet, but I spoke with the folks at the Heinz Farm, and I'm not sure if you guys aren't from the Heinz Farm, right? Okay. The person who bought the Heinz Farm. And because I didn't realize it wasn't a Heinz, I said, I'm looking for the Heinz. And he said, the owner. And I said, that's me. And I said, okay. So I talked to her, and she said she wasn't aware of this and had just become aware of it. And she said, well, I don't mind having a sidewalk through here for the purposes of my business. I don't want to be responsible for it. And that's kind of where my brother has said, and where I am in a roundabout way too, because I've held on to this property. I've paid my taxes. I get nothing out of it because I don't live there. I don't get the benefit of even my taxes. I had opportunities to sell it, and I chose not to. Now, I know on the map, although I've been told that they will put some cutaways, the initial map that was put together, it's the equivalent of a wall. I can't get in and out of my property. There's no place for me to enter. I've been told that they will add some. I'll take that at their word. I also had a chance to talk to the Widarskis. They also were relatively new and being brought up to speed. I guess they have 25 acres of land, but only a small little piece of frontage on Meadow Road. They're all of, I think, 78 years old. So they go and they bring in their lawnmower to mow their property. And we had an interesting discussion. We talked about sidewalks in general, and they said, you know, we had troubles with our sidewalk, which goes all the way from Justin up to the school. We had somebody who wanted to buy our land, and we couldn't sell it to them because the town wouldn't let us have any cutaways. They said no, and then the people walked away. And then they got a low end offer from the town to buy it from them. So listening to that, it just reinforces the concern that I have. I don't want to have a piece of land that I'm going to pass down to my daughter. It's not worth anything. We've had it in the family for over 100 years. Actually, I think the first piece was my Uncle Jack when he built the house and then sold, and my cousin Patty sold her house to move into our grandfather's house. So nothing's been sold to the Krell farm other than those two. Now, you guys are dealing with the rules that are going to be put together. I did a little more researching. I talked to the town manager, and I appreciate the fact that it doesn't have to look all over the place for something that's way old. On the issue of, there was a provision that allowed people to opt out of having sidewalks years ago. It was given to me by a resident in the town of Farmington. The person who gave it to me, and I can't give you the name because he wouldn't allow me to release it, said he got it from a person who worked for the town. Again, a long time ago, probably before your time, for all I know. So I guess what I would ask is that some consideration be given in whatever rules were put together to have some type of ability. Everything doesn't fit into a cookie cutter. Sometimes things are different. And there's got to be circumstances where just because it says we got to go do the removal of snow doesn't mean the town can't help. I think somebody on the board had made a comment about, it might have been the town manager early on in the process. You know, it's a possibility the town could actually take up the responsibility for the whole town.
We are at 5 minutes, Mr. Crowe, so yeah.
Pardon?
We are at 5 minutes if we can.
We were there already? All right, I will.
You can wrap up your point. I don't want to, you can wrap up your point if you want.
All right, let me just take a quick look. I don't have much more anyway. I tried to keep it short. Anyway, long story short is this week was the first time I talked to an attorney on this process, and I may end up having to sell. If it goes through that I'm going to be responsible for doing the sidewalks and I can't get cutouts, then I don't have to move on that much faster because I don't live in town. And I apologize for leaving because I have courses tonight I have to take. So I got a couple hours and I'll be busy. I would like to stay in here because I'm sure you'll have some interesting discussion. Thank you very much for the time.
Thank you, Mr. Crowe.
You can watch the rest of the meeting on YouTube later. You can watch the rest of the meeting on YouTube later. Always afraid of.
Anybody else would like to make public comment?
Got my own timer here. Make sure I try and stay within the time here. So, all right. To the members of the committee, Kathy, my name is Josh Davidson, 74 Basswood Road. I'm here to talk about something I believe first is a point of agreement in this committee, which is that sidewalks are a public good, essential for a safe, healthy, and connected Farmington. However, our town's entire approach to this public good is built on a broken and contradictory foundation. The central problem, which this committee has rightly acknowledged in the past, is that our current ordinance treats this shared community asset as a private burden. We don't ask homeowners to personally pay for paving the public road in front of their house, yet we do exactly that for sidewalks. This single flawed premise is the source of all the frustration and inequity we face. This isn't just a theoretical problem, it's created very real and unfair consequences for residents. First, it's created a geographic lottery for sidewalk repairs. Our town's reliance on grants means that if you were fortunate enough to live on Main Street, you received new sidewalks. But let's be very clear, those grants only covered half the costs. The other 50% of those streets, the other 50% came directly from our town budget. That means every single taxpayer in this town, including those on streets with no sidewalks, helped to pay to replace the sidewalks for a very select group. Yet those taxpayers are still 100% responsible for their own sidewalks. And the town even fines some residents for not maintaining them, as we've heard about. It's fundamentally unfair and a contradictory policy. I think there's acknowledgement that it's not good, but what I haven't seen so far is a real clear movement to make something better. It also second creates an absurd situation on streets with sidewalks on one side of the road, where a family on one side of the street is saddled with the cost and labor of shoveling, the legal liability, et cetera. And everyone else, the family directly across the street, has none of that. It's because of this fundamentally unfair structure that the committee's recent focus on Meadow Road feels premature. And with all due respect, deliberating on a single project simply because a grant is available is putting the cart before the horse. Any discussion about surveying the homeowners, which was at length in the last meeting, is a flawed exercise from the start. We're asking the wrong question. Under the current rules, a survey doesn't ask, do you support our community? It implicitly asks, are you as an individual willing to accept an unknown, potentially massive financial liability for a public asset? So when framed in that way, you're going to get very different responses than if you fix the ordinance first and then ask people under that new framework whether that sidewalk is desired or not, just like the gentleman that just left. So in my view, the first and foremost duty of this committee, and it is your first charge, is the purpose that you went through, Keith, in the beginning, was to fix the ordinance, to make recommendations to fix the ordinance. And so I propose 3 logical steps. So 1, reform the ordinance, which is just a non-negotiable first step. There are ways to fund that through whether it's property taxes directly, a separate charge like a utility type charge, like we do for trash and sewer, for example. I'm sure there's ways to do it, but ultimately this is going to cost money. Second, build the data foundation. After establishing a fair system, we have to get accurate data on what the current situation is. We need a professional, not an intern, professional, not an intern, complete inventory of every sidewalk in town and its current condition. We cannot budget for a managed asset that we haven't properly measured. And step 3, only when we develop a strategic master plan. And I think the strategic master plan needs to be, and I think there was some evidence, I think it was 2 meetings ago, where Kathy walked through sort of a first draft of things. I think there's some significant flaws in that, of saying things like significant benefit. What is significant? What's significant to me is not going to be significant to you or to 5 other people. I think you need some real clear definitions of what we're talking about. I think the key areas I suggest, so safety. Does it get pedestrians off a road with a high speed limit or heavy traffic volume? Connectivity. Does it connect a neighborhood to a school? Does it link 2 neighborhoods together? I heard that sort of dismissed in 2 meetings ago as connecting 2 neighborhoods is not valuable. I'll say, as a member of a neighborhood that is connected with town-owned sidewalks to other communities, extremely valuable to have those connections for kids, for adults, huge value in doing that. And to dismiss that, I think, is a mistake. Does it fill a critical gap between 2 existing sidewalks? I think Farmington Avenue is a huge opportunity for that. Arguably the busiest, most important street in our town does not have a sidewalk, 15 feet from the high school. The kids are literally walking to and from school on Route 4 every day. Walk out of this office and go walk at dismissal time and watch the high school students walk down the shoulders of Route 4. It shouldn't be accepted. We shouldn't be waiting for something. It needs to be done. Strategic importance. So does a sidewalk lie along a major town corridor like Farmington Avenue that serves the entire community? And a community need, does it provide access to a high density neighborhood, a senior center, shopping destinations, et cetera? And I think we need data-driven, transparent process. And this process, equity first, data second, and strategy third, I think is the most logical and efficient way forward. I urge this committee to focus on that ordinance first, because everything else comes after that. Funding, solutions, new sidewalks, and where we should be prioritizing. I don't understand why we went with Meadow Road and got a grant for something that now we're saying we need to survey. And if we don't get 75%, then we won't do it. Why in the world didn't we do that before we applied for the grant? Thank you.
No problem. Just a point of clarity on the survey. The survey is, in the end, the decision on Meadow Road will be made by town council. The survey is just to poll residents, but I do appreciate your comment. Thank you very much. And anybody else for public comment? And then I think we had people online.
Not seeing any hands raised online, but we'll give another moment.
Sure.
I think we're all set.
Also, so absent the other member of our committee, should we proceed or?
I think part of the whole purpose of having ad hoc committees is to have a small group kind of discuss the policy decision. And as you can see, that there's definitely some different points of view, and that's what this committee is supposed to be discussing. So without trying to have the discussion on that, I think that maybe we give him a call and make sure we're because this is the second meeting he's missed, to find out.
Yeah.
if maybe we're doing a bad schedule for him. And so
Yeah,
I think it'd be beneficial to have you both here.
Yeah, as much as I would love to knock it out now because we are here and I'll give you the time. I just think, especially when you consider the public comment, which, you know, we had input, and I think from really both sides of the spectrum, which is like Mr. Krell, steadfastly would prefer not to have a sidewalk, and then our public comment would like it in, you know, the comprehensive fashion. I don't want to short.
I think Mr. Crowell wouldn't be opposed under an ordinance when he wouldn't be responsible for it.
No, yeah. I wasn't. I just. The only reason I said is I didn't want to make it. I wasn't trying to encapsulate what you said into something very small because you had a very, you know, well-spoken thing. But I just think that there's a lot of different, you know, perspectives on it. So I think having Brian here would be useful for sure. So is there anything on this that we should do, or should we?
No, I think the only thing to talk about is that even though Mr. Davidson doesn't like the interim approach, that, you know, that we are doing just to try to get a baseline. Obviously, we're going to have the public works people, and whatever the committee is going to do later on about the inspections would be either a professional person. But I do think that Thomas did a good job of trying to give us some kind of baseline, and that we're going to have, I think, the public works department at least focus on the Ds and the Fs and verify and try to get a comprehensive list of how those sidewalks are. And I did see that Mountain Spring Road was missed on it. So we're going to go through it, and, you know, again, there's a lot of sidewalks, and, you know, kind of verify some things with them.
Thomas's grades were a preliminary.
Yes.
Over. Yeah. So that's not the final word on how everything was.
No, I think that it takes a lot of time for someone to do that. So I think this helps us out. And of course, you know, again, we're going to have to do an overview of it.
Yeah.
But I would like to look, you know, at least on the Fs and the Ds and take a look at that. I drove around and looked at, you know, tried to just see if he was in the ballpark on a lot of it. And, you know, to be fair, I think a good percentage of our sidewalks were all built at basically the same time, and they kind of look the same. They're narrow sidewalks that are not concrete. They meander through.
Yeah.
Some of them get too narrow. Some of them in portions aren't. I think a lot of sidewalks are Cs and Bs, B minuses. That's what they are throughout town.
I agree, which is, you know, highlights also having somebody that, you know, one of our, you know, people from Public Works or an engineer that we're bringing in from the outside to look at stuff too, so that they give us a real
Comprehensive review.
So should we?
I think we just adjourn the meeting and we talk to Brian and we get another meeting on the books.
Okay. So with that, we will adjourn tonight's meeting and probably see you back to the next one.